Hi good people, Titus here for part 3 of our Teleportation Pad mini-series, and in this video we'll be fixing our rivets and creating high and low poly versions of our meshes so we can begin sculpting the extra details. Once we have the added details to our model, we can then bake it into a UV texture map so we can use on our low poly model in Unreal Engine. Let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and select a rivet. Doesn't matter which one we choose, we can bring it into isolation mode with /, tab into edit, and then I'm going to go to face select by clicking up here. You can also press 3, and then from top view I'll just press C for circle select, and then I'll just select the inside faces and press enter to lock that selection in. I'll zoom out, and then I'm going to grab in the Z axis. Actually, before that I can press O to go in proportional editing, or click up here to basically activate that. And then I'll lock it in the Z axis. And then the radius or diameter is shown in the upper left hand corner. You can just use your mouse wheel and scroll that until it's really small, because we're dealing with a really small object. So, and then that'll reduce your sphere of influence. So kind of like that. So I think maybe I'll try something like this. Yeah, maybe like that. That looks pretty good. So then what I'll do as well, I'll click O to get out of proportional editing, and then press X, delete those faces right there, and then I can select the bottom, delete those faces. And then I can go to edge select, hold Alt, click that inside ring, and then I can just simply E to extrude, lock it in the Z axis, pick a depth. If I click N, I can bring up my item properties, and because I'm in edit view, it's going to be relative. So I can just go to the Z axis here, zero it out, and that's going to set it even to the this bottom point here, because that's where my origin is. And then I can shift and alt select the outer ring, and then right click bridge edge loops. So it'll basically connect those pieces with the hole in the center, so I don't have to basically do a cutout. And then if I come out of isolation mode, I have basically a basic rivet, I guess, or at least what I was going for. And then when we add like a subsurf modifier to it, you can notice it kind of loses a lot of its detail, and it kind of rounds out. What you can do for that is in edit mode, you can go to edge select, make sure nothing's selected, and then choose select sharp edges. And then if you press N, you can add a mean crease and a mean bevel weight. And then that way, if you look at your subsurf modifier, it'll retain that shape, but also round out those hard edges on the outside there. So it looks a little bit better. Like so. And then for the levels, I'll probably bump this to 4, although I'm not going to apply that yet. And we'll come out of / isolation mode there, and now what we're gonna have to do is, you can do that on each one, but I think for me, I'm just going to duplicate these and replace our old ones. So what we can do is I can select the next rivet, I can do Shift S, and then I can do cursor to selected. I can then press X and delete that object. I could select the one I made earlier and do Shift D to duplicate it. And then you can right click, snap it back, doesn't really matter. Just simply right click and do snap selection to cursor. And then it puts it where the other one used to be. So I can repeat that again, select this, Shift S, cursor to selected, then I can press X to delete the old one. I can duplicate any of these here, and you can put it wherever, it doesn't matter. Right click, snap it to cursor, and then it's pretty much just a matter of doing the same thing over again. So cursor to selected, then delete it, Shift D, right click, snap to selection to cursor, like so. And now when we go to top view, if I do Shift S, cursor to world origin, Alt A, you can kind of see it looks like a better rivet. Alright, so I'm gonna speed up the video here, and I'm basically gonna repeat that for the other rivets. So I'll see you in a second. All right, and we're back, and we got our rivets all situated here. So now the next thing I want to do with our rivets is I want to join them into one piece. So if I expand out the rivets here, you can see them all. I can select the top one, and then shift select all the ones in my outlier, and then I can press Control J to join them. I'm just thinking if I want to keep them separate. I don't think I do. Okay, what we can do is let's do File, Save As, bump it up to next level, then save, just in case we want to revert this. And then we'll do Control J, and that'll join it. So it is basically one piece. And now I can actually create two new folders. So I'm going to rename this to rivets, and then I'm going to shift select the accent, the base, and the rivets. I'm going to move it to a new collection, call this LP, and then I'm going to shift D to duplicate the selection, and then right click, and I'm going to move that selection to a collection called HP. And then now we have these two folders here. So I can bring up the high poly, and then I can bring up the low poly. So the low poly is not going to have the subsurf modifier, so we can just delete it. And it's going to be this low poly, which is about 3,000 triangles on each one, which is still pretty dense, but it's going to be a lot more dense with the subsurf modifier added. And then you'll see that here in a second. So if we bring back the high poly, if I apply this, and then I tab into edit mode, you can see that we have almost 900,000 tries. So when we do our sculpting, we basically want you want more geometry, so you can basically sculpt the details. It makes it easier, and then we're basically going to capture those details into a texture map, and then we'll just apply it to our low poly, and we'll bring the low poly in game, and then we'll kind of fake that detail. All right, but let's do similar for the other objects that aren't going to be in the high poly. So if we isolate this here, you notice there's kind of some rough edges here. So what we can do is if we add a subsurf modifier, you'll notice you'll get these kind of stretching. So we'll take care of that in a second. There's 3 common ways that I know of to increase your geometry. So right now, this object has about 2,500 tries. So we can simply add a subdivision surface modifier, and you can bump the resolutions to whatever you're looking for. Like say we did 2, and then you applied it, then you can actually see that increase in geo right there. But I'll go ahead and undo that. And then if I bump it to like say 4, and then you can see it's even more dense. The problem with the subsurf modifier is if I undo it, it is a kind of a destructive modeling process because you have to apply the modifier. So some people don't like that. Some people prefer the multi-resolution modifier. So if we get rid of that, you can see the multi-resolution modifier, and then you can actually hit subdivide, and it kind of does a similar thing. But you'll notice, like if you bring this into your sculpting, you can actually sculpt on top of it. And then if you don't like what you did, you can undo it, or get rid of the modifier completely, and then kind of go back. Whereas the subsurf modifier, this one doesn't work at all. In sculpting, you actually have to apply it. So there's kind of the difference between the two. Like some people prefer one or the other, or it depends on your workload. So you'll probably find yourself using, different ones, or maybe a combination of both. The other way you can do it too is if we get rid of the subsurf, you can actually go into sculpting, and if we go to top view with 7, you can do R, which will bring up your remesh visual aid, and then let's see if I can actually see it a little better. And then you can actually reduce the count. The lower the number, the finer your mesh, basically. So if we do 0.01 and then just press enter to lock that in, it doesn't actually apply it, because you can notice I can go into edit mode and you see the geometry is it's very low poly. But if I press Control R and then I tab in edit mode, you can see that extra geo unlocks. So that's another way to do it. And then when you have this extra geo, you can actually begin sculpting on that. But we'll go ahead and undo that. That one's kind of tricky too, though, because sometimes you don't know, like say you started like around here, and you did a Control R. You can see it goes kind of all wonky. And then if you were to try to sculpt on this, your level of detail might be there. Like if we do like a draw sharp, and it might not come out well. You can't really see anything. So it might take a few attempts to get your remesh set right. Like usually I go like really fine. And this one, like say we do that, Control R, it's more so on what your computer can handle, based on like your graphics card and stuff. So like this one is pretty fine. So you notice it captures the detail a little bit easier when you're actually sculpting. So the finer you go, the easier time you're gonna have with your actual sculpting. So let's undo that one a few times. There we go. So now we're back in the low poly, and let's say I do something. You can do a mix of both too. So like say I was starting out, I can add a subdivision surface modifier, bump it to 2 levels, apply that. So then I'm left with something like this, and then you can go into sculpting, and then you can remesh it down to a further level. Say I did 0.008. I don't know if my computer can handle it. Hopefully it doesn't crash. And then you can see you can get finer details that way as well. And then I'd probably go even finer than that because that actually doesn't come out too smooth. So undo that. But let's actually go all the way back. And we will get rid of, yeah, there we go. All right, so now we're kind of back how we were. I just wanted to cover the 3 ways to increase your geo. So subsurf modifiers, multi-resolution modifiers, or the remesh. We're gonna be doing the sculpting in the next video. So I'm gonna be using a combination of, I'm gonna be using just probably subsurf and remesh. I don't think I'll use multi-resolution. Maybe I will. That way, you guys can kind of see it in action. But starting off for this one, the other thing you'll want to worry about is you'll notice when we apply the subsurf, we get a little bit of pinching. What you can do is go into edge select and then do select sharp edges. And then same thing as before, we can add a, you can click N to bring up your item menu, and you can add a mean crease and a mean bevel. And then when you add the subsurf, you'll notice you don't get the pinching anymore because it knows how to handle the actual weights appropriately. So make sure to do that so your shape looks good. And then I think for this one, let me go back into sculpting here. Yeah, I think for this one I'm going to do the subsurf to round it out first, and then maybe I'll do 3. And then I'll apply that. That unlocks the geo. And then if I were to sculpt this now, you can see, it's not great. But if I do a remesh, maybe 0.004, 0.005, Control R, you see that's very dense. And if I try to draw on that now, it's much smoother. So that's kind of what you're looking for. You can go even further. So it's whatever your computer can handle. The mesh is going to be unusable. Like I wouldn't be able to take this into Unreal Engine and use it because it's going to be too expensive, topology wise. But we're just going to be stealing the detail anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So make it as dense as your computer can handle. We'll bake the details onto a texture map and we'll put it on our low poly. So we're basically going to be golden on that front. We'll come out of isolation mode. So we got our rivets, we got our accent piece. So now let's work on the base. So I'll bring on isolation. And you can see we're probably gonna be running into the same issue. If I was to add a subsurf or a multi-resolution, you're probably gonna get some weird pinching, even if you increase it. Kind of looks like a balloon a little bit. You can see it real bad right there. So we can hide that for now. Go into selection mode or edit mode. Make sure nothing's selected, and then do select sharp edges. And you'll notice it actually didn't complete a lot of the edges. So what I can do is I am going to do Shift Alt, select this, and then hit it again to deselect. And then same thing with this one. And same thing with this one. And then this one up here. It has some extra items that I didn't want selected. So we'll see if we can get rid of these. We'll do Shift Alt, select that one, this one, and that one. And I think everything else is probably going to be okay. We may add some at the top. We'll see how it looks. But if we press N, let's add a mean crease and a mean bevel. So it's kind of like highlighted there in blue. And then we can tab out. And let's see if it maintains our shape. So go ahead and show. And then that looks pretty good. Very good. But yeah, you'll notice again with the multi-resolution subsurf modifier, well, with the multi-resolution you can get the edit functionality, but with the subsurf you can't. So if I tab into edit, or if I try to sculpt, it's not going to be there. So we can just go ahead and apply this now. And then that unlocks the geo. And then if we needed to, we can bring it into sculpting. You can test to see how it reacts. Let's go to top view with 7. You get some weird stuff there. Let's see if I can isolate it. I can. Perfect. If I were to try to like scrape around, you can see it's, you know, a little jittery. But if we remesh it, and let's try 0.009. So I press enter to lock that in, and then Control R, and it actually does the remesh. I recommend saving before you do that, because a lot of times my program will crash on me, so just be aware of that. And then you can see it's a lot denser, so now when we go to scrape or do something, it's much smoother, and you get a much better look. And that's what we're going to need on the actual sculpting phase. So that pretty much will be the difference between the 3 ways that I know of to increase geo. Like I said, I don't think there's a set way that you have to do it. You'll probably find yourself using, you know, all 3 of them or a combination thereof. But yeah. Alright people, we'll cut it here to keep the video short, but in the next one we'll begin the sculpting process on the accent pieces, and I'll demonstrate a few techniques, including the stencil alpha brush and the anchor brush, as well as vanilla sculpting as well. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and see you on the next one.